Today, we're diving into one of the most intense developments in Europe's ongoing geopolitical tension. Denmark moves first, and Putin's Baltic plans are being completely destroyed. What's happening in the Baltic Sea right now could reshape not just regional power, but the entire security balance between NATO and Russia. This is a story of strategic moves, bold decisions, and the crumbling of Russia's long-standing ambitions in the north. For years, Russia has viewed the Baltic Sea as a vital gateway, a zone of military control, trade routes, and access to Europe. Ever since the Soviet era, Moscow's focus on this region has been clear: maintain dominance and use the Baltic as a pressure point against NATO and the European Union. But that old strategy is collapsing fast, and Denmark is right at the center of it. Denmark, a small but powerful NATO member, has stepped up with unprecedented confidence. It's not just about political statements or symbolic gestures anymore. This is real military positioning, strategic intelligence sharing, and economic defense measures. Denmark has transformed itself from a quiet Nordic state into one of the most proactive defenders of NATO's northern flank. The trigger for this dramatic shift came after years of Russian naval activities in the Baltic spy ships, aggressive exercises, and undersea infrastructure sabotage threats. Moscow believed it could intimidate its neighbors, especially the smaller NATO states like Denmark, Estonia, and Latvia. But now the tables have turned. Denmark has taken a decisive step that directly disrupts Russia's strategic influence. The move started with Denmark's announcement to strengthen its defenses around the Danish Straits, one of the most crucial maritime choke points in Europe. These narrow waters are the only direct way for Russian ships to move from the Baltic Sea into the North Sea and beyond. Whoever controls this route controls a major part of Russia's naval logistics. And now, Denmark has effectively locked it down. This is not just about ships or patrols. Denmark is deploying advanced surveillance systems, underwater drones, and radar monitoring across the straits. Every Russian vessel movement is being tracked. For the first time, Russia's Baltic fleet faces complete transparency in its operations. There are no more blind spots, no more surprise naval moves. Denmark's new monitoring network, built with NATO and U.S. support, ensures that every signal, every maneuver is visible. Putin never expected this level of precision from a country like Denmark. Moscow's strategy relied on exploiting the gaps in NATO's coordination. Russia believed that smaller countries would hesitate to take initiative without Washington or Brussels approving every move. But Denmark acted first, decisively and independently. That action alone changed the entire balance of power in the Baltic. Russia's frustration is visible. The Kremlin has issued multiple warnings, accusing Denmark of militarizing the Baltic region. But those warnings hold little weight now. After years of Russian aggression from Crimea to Ukraine to hybrid attacks in Europe, NATO allies have realized that waiting is no longer an option. Denmark's proactive approach has become an example for others. Sweden and Finland, now both firmly in NATO, are aligning with Denmark to create what analysts are calling a Northern Shield. This new coalition of northern nations is forming a security wall across the Baltic. It's not an official alliance within NATO, but a powerful regional front. Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and even Norway are coordinating joint exercises, sharing real-time intelligence, and investing in coastal defense systems. The result is that Russia's room to maneuver in the Baltic has shrunk dramatically. For the Kremlin, the situation is disastrous. The Baltic fleet, once a symbol of Russian power projection, is now cornered. Every move it makes is under observation. Even its bases in Kaliningrad, the heavily militarized Russian exclave, are becoming vulnerable. NATO's surveillance reach extends deep into that territory. Denmark's systems feed directly into NATO's command centers, allowing Western forces to respond instantly to any potential threat. Meanwhile, Denmark isn't stopping at military measures. It's taking economic and energy actions too. After the Nord Stream pipeline explosions, which cut off major gas links between Russia and Europe, Denmark has doubled its investments in alternative energy routes and protection of undersea cables. Those cables are essential to the global internet and communication systems. Russia has repeatedly been accused of mapping them for possible sabotage. Denmark's move to protect them is not just national security, it's global stability. The symbolism of Denmark's actions is striking. For decades, Russia has viewed NATO's northern edge as a weak spot, small nations, limited militaries, and dependency on U.S. protection. But Denmark's leadership shows a new reality. Small states can take big strategic steps that change the entire geopolitical equation. It's also important to note that Denmark's actions align with a much larger shift in European defense thinking. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, European nations have realized that peace cannot depend solely on diplomacy. Power and deterrence matter again. Denmark's decision to increase its defense budget to record levels reflects this understanding. Billions of dollars are being poured into coastal defense, missile systems, and cyber protection. The Danish government has also strengthened its military cooperation with the United States and the United Kingdom. Joint training exercises are now routine in the Baltic Sea. U.S. naval ships regularly operate alongside Danish and Swedish forces, sending a clear message to Moscow: the North is united. This unity has exposed one of Russia's biggest weaknesses: overextension. The war in Ukraine has drained Moscow's military and financial capacity. Maintaining a powerful presence in the Baltic is now almost impossible. Supply lines are stretched thin, and morale within Russia's navy is reported to be declining. Putin's dream of using the Baltic as a pressure tool against NATO has completely unraveled. The strategic importance of Denmark's move cannot be overstated. The Danish Straits are a choke point that controls not only Russian naval traffic, but also a significant portion of European trade. By tightening its control over these waters, Denmark has essentially placed its hand on one of Russia's vital arteries. It's like shutting down a major highway for the Russian fleet. And Moscow knows it can't afford a direct confrontation. Here, NATO's presence is simply too strong. Beyond the military implications, Denmark's assertive stance has had political ripple effects across Europe. Other nations are now following its lead. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are increasing their defense spending. Sweden and Finland are integrating their defense systems into NATO's network faster than ever. Even Germany, often criticized for its cautious foreign policy, is praising Denmark's decisive role in securing the Baltic. Putin's problem is that every step Russia takes to respond only makes things worse. When Russian jets fly near Danish or Swedish airspace, they are intercepted immediately. When Russian ships move close to NATO waters, they are tracked continuously. The element of surprise that once gave Moscow leverage is gone. Denmark's real time-tracking systems and intelligence sharing with NATO make any aggressive maneuver nearly impossible to hide. There's also the psychological factor. Russia's intimidation tactics, cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and military threats used to create fear and hesitation. But now, these tactics are losing their impact. Denmark and its allies have built strong cyber defenses and public resilience. Information warfare is being countered with transparency and coordination. Every Russian attempt to sow confusion is met with quick exposure and factual response. In the long run, this new strategic posture is changing how Europe views security. For decades, the idea was that small countries had to rely on big powers. But Denmark's leadership shows that smaller nations can take initiative and lead the response. This lesson is spreading fast, especially among frontline NATO members who face similar threats from Russia. The most striking part of all this is how quickly things have changed. Just a few years ago, the idea of Denmark challenging Russia's Baltic influence would have seemed unrealistic. but now it's a fact. The speed of military modernization, intelligence upgrades, and regional cooperation has shocked analysts worldwide. Russia, on the other hand, seems to be running out of options. With its resources tied up in Ukraine and its economy under heavy sanctions, it cannot match NATO's growing northern coordination. The Baltic Fleet, despite its historical prestige, is increasingly obsolete compared to the advanced Western technology now monitoring and surrounding it. There are growing reports of internal frustration within the Russian Navy. Officers are reportedly demoralized by limited movement, lack of modern equipment, and constant Western surveillance. Denmark's moves have made the Baltic one of the most monitored seas in the world. This has turned Russia's traditional stronghold into a geopolitical trap. What Denmark has done is create a new kind of deterrence, one that doesn't rely solely on massive armies or nuclear weapons, but on information, dominance, and rapid response. In today's world, that's far more effective. Control the data, control the intelligence, and you control the battlefield before it even starts. Putin's Baltic plans are not just delayed, they're being dismantled piece by piece. Every time Russia tries to assert dominance, Denmark and its allies counter with precision and unity. This constant checkmate is reshaping Moscow's calculations. Even within Russia, analysts are starting to question the viability of maintaining such a costly and vulnerable presence in the Baltic. As Europe watches closely, Denmark's actions are setting a precedent for the future of regional defense. Small but strategic nations can no longer be seen as passive players. They are now central to maintaining global stability. And in this case, Denmark has proven that timing and initiative can be just as powerful as military size. The story of Denmark moving first is more than just a headline, it's a shift in the global order. Russia's Baltic ambitions are being systematically dismantled, and the world is witnessing a new era of northern strength and cooperation. This is not just Denmark's victory, it's a message to any aggressor that underestimating smaller nations can lead to devastating strategic consequences. In the coming months, the Baltic Sea will continue to be one of the most watched and contested regions on the planet. But one thing is already clear: Denmark's early and decisive action has changed the game forever. Putin's plans for dominance have been destroyed not by force alone, but by intelligence, unity, and the courage of a nation that refused to stay silent. Thank you all for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on global developments and power shifts around the world.